Okay, so there's this Albert Einstein quote that says, imagination is more important than knowledge. And I love that quote. I want to talk about that quote and talk about I want to talk about some thoughts I have about it, basically. So, it's funny, since joining the church and finding that quote again, that quote used to be really big to me around 2015, 2016, when I was into crystals and metaphysics and stuff like that. All those things. New Age stuff. That quote used to be really big to me. But now, since joining the church, I realize how important knowledge is and how much growth is, and understanding and learning. And I love these things so much. And so I don't necessarily agree with the quote on a basic level. I don't necessarily agree that imagination is more important than knowledge. But I do love the emphasis it puts on imagination. Because imagination is not the same. It's not the same. It's a form of thinking. You can think through your imagination. You can think imaginatively. But usually, when people say, "Figure it out, hurry up, figure it out. What is it? Think about it. What is it?" And you're just like, "Oh, I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know. I'm thinking. There's not usually a lot of time or room or use of the imagination. Maybe so. Everybody's different. Everybody uses their imaginations differently. Also, there is the societal, we could call it a societal grind against imagination, because we're taught, at least to some extent, there is a mindset, real or elusive or imaginary. It says imagination is for kids. This is the real world, pal. You show up at your job and you do your job. You don't have time to daydream. You don't have time for fairy tales. Whatever you thought, put it behind you. Throw it away. This is not the place for that. You're an adult. You don't have time for imagination. You know? Dang, that hurts my throat talking like that. But anyway, that's my point. There's discouragement against imagination. And so for me, imagination, I can definitely see some good guardrails to keep your imagination within. Because, not within yourself, but within the guardrails. Because I have seen extremes. I've seen both levels of extreme, right? You don't want to get to the point where you're like the corporate master who discourages all forms of imagination and does not want you to think for yourself, doesn't want you to think outside the box, they pay you. It's like, I pay you to work, not to think. Think about how ridiculous that is. That's such a stupid thought, right? I pay you to work, not to think. I get it, though. You're supposed to do the job, but still, give me a break, bro. You pay me not to think? You know? Anyway, so you want to keep your imagination within the bounds of going too far this way and too far this way. So too far this way, too far to the right, is not even using it at all. Don't ever use it. Don't ever think about things differently. Literally, don't imagine at all. Shout out to Imagine by John Lennon. And let that song speak about how amazing imagination actually is. But with that said, speaking of John Lennon and Imagine, the song, and his concepts and lyrics and thoughts in that song, let's talk about the other side of the spectrum, right? too far. Using it too much. Using it not enough, using it too much. Using it not enough is... using it not enough. Using it too much is the territory that I was in when I was into the metaphysics, the crystals, the New Age movement, into spirituality over religion, basically. And I'm gonna pepper. I'm sorry I get a little distracted. Thoughts come to me, and they're great thoughts. But I'm gonna pepper in a Daniel Tosh joke right here. And he's making fun of people who he's making fun of like the spirituality movement and everything. And he's like, I met a girl one time, and she's like, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not honest, but you're interesting. It's hilarious because what a shallow thing, right? I mean, collectively, never mind. Let's just let that go. I'm not going there anymore. I'm letting it go. Forget it. You got the joke. That's all you get. You don't get any more on that from me. Anyway. Well, there's the people who are like, I'm spiritual. But they're like, but I'm not religious. I'm not religious. Most of the time, I'm so not going to go on a tangent bashing people here. But anyway, that's let's just say that side is the side of using imagination too much. Because you need to think about things. You need to accept reality. And it's best to accept God's teachings. So if you just spend all day in La La Land, thinking and imagining things, then, or in the religious field, like some theologies, they get to this point where they're just like, oh, well, we think this because this, and we found this verse and this verse, and then we added them together. We added these two verses together, and because we added them together, we came up with this. And this is what we believe, and so this is what we built our church on. What? So there's too much imagination in theology as well. Crazy. Crazy. You know what I'm saying? So too much imagination is just as bad as not enough. But anyway, my whole point here is imagination is important. And just like all other things, guess what? There is a righteous and an unrighteous balance for everything. Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought that through all the way, but I know that there's a good and bad version of, let's just say, imagination, right? There's a good and bad version of eating, right? There's a good and bad version of flirting, of working hard, of working out, all these things, right? In balance, right? Keep it balanced. Healthy balance. So anyway, I just thought that quote was really cool. Imagination is more important than knowledge, because I don't agree that knowledge is less important than imagination, but I do agree that imagination is very important. Because it's not going to do you a lot of good if you don't know anything, but you are really good at imagining things. Because you're going to be imagining all kinds of stuff, but you're not going to have the details, the frameworks, the frame of references, the real world applicability. However, it is going to free you from the domain of normal thinking. Anyway, this has been my thought. So let me know what you think.